What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 298 of Opinions May Vary. I'm your host, JR. My co-host with me, Alex.
Hello.
Hey, man.
Hi.
It's good to see you on a beautiful, not dreary. It's a gray Sunday.
It's a little cloudy.
Joining us this week via the whatever electronic device we're using this time, I can't even remember, is Toni. We have talked about Toni in the past on our show under a different name. Toni also goes by the MadEtcha. We will get into if long-time listeners, if you listen to our episodes in May when we talk about Steampunk World's Fair, we have gushed about Toni in the past and her work, and now she is joining us this week to let us ask her questions about it. Toni, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
This should be a lot of fun. This is one that really I've been looking forward to for like a while now. It's like, hey, when are we going to trying to get MadEtcha on?
Honestly, it's been in the bank for a bit.
But this should be a lot of fun. We have, like I said, we have talked about Toni, you and your work on our show in the past, like on our Steampunk World's Fair recap episodes, partially because you're one of the vendors that we always look forward to seeing, and we have always admired your work. I think, Alex, you knew about Toni and her work before I had even started going to World's Fair. Like at the first year, you were like, oh, hey, I know about this. I'm going to tell you about this.
And we're going to look at everything. And I'm going to look for one item in particular that I haven't seen in 5 years. But, years ago, an ex-girlfriend introduced me to Wicked Fair. And I don't recall if it was my first or second Wicked Fair. But I found MadEtcha, and her table was set up in like a side vendor room. And I remember there being at least two other tables in there. One was a couple of guys who recognized my bandana from Nigel, the pirate, who I'm trying to remember like his business name. Desad? Yeah, Desad something.
I just know he goes by Nigel Say It on Facebook.
Yeah, Nigel Say It, there you go.
Yeah.
And then I bought a couple small bottles from Toni. And one was a flying skeleton, and one was a dragon. And I couldn't get over how finely detailed the work is. And like, if you ever like try
told you we're really good at gushing.
And so what Toni does is she dremels into glassware. I mean, in a few I'll have her get into more explaining about that. But if you've ever tried to like drill or write onto a curved surface, it's impossible. and like to make sure it's like, like it's correct and it doesn't slip or anything, because on top of that, using a Dremel tool, which by its nature is wants to get away from you,
right?
But this dragon, I'll post some pictures of it later. It has its scales and its tail is to a fine point, and I think there's like whiskers or other parts in its head that come to like such a fine point, and I can't get over like how detailed this is.
And this is what caught your eye 5 years ago. Okay.
And there was a really nice pirate ship I've talked about every time we meet up with MadEtcha. And it was in this brown bottle. And I was like, oh, it's a really cool pirate ship. And as a pirate, I kind of wanted it. But I didn't realize like what it actually was. And it turned out to be this double chamber like serving jar.
I remember that bottle.
Yeah.
I've never been able to find another bottle like it.
So imagine that like a big, let's say like a big like circular, I don't know, it's to hold liquid.
Right.
But if you put in wine or something in one chamber, there's a bubble of glass that goes inside of it from a different direction. And like they both have corks on them.
Wow.
And so the thing is, you put like ice or cold water in one side, and that will cool the liquid inside.
Right.
But it's not going to dilute it at all. So you can keep it warm or hot through the second chamber, while the first chamber doesn't, lose any of its flavor.
Right. Get like watered down or anything.
Yeah.
Huh.
And I didn't realize that's what it was, because I would have bought that first and skipped the two smaller items. But the first one was Wicked Fair, and then when we saw her at Steampunk World's Fair, I was like, she's back. Let's go look at all her stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that was one of the first, because the first World's Fair for me was a pretty big shock to the system in that I'd never been to a show like that before. So I was still kind of reeling from like what is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And
I still struggle to explain it.
it's tough. Like we've been trying to convince. Hopefully this year we'll have a new friend in tow that I've been slowly working on convincing to attend.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they may finally be. I may have worn them down. they may try to make it out this year. And the first year, I remember like it was in the embassy hallway. Down by like the stage, like the smaller stage. Remember that? You know, where we saw like Erica Henderson that one time, like in that hallway there.
No, she had her own room.
The first year?
Yeah.
The first year I thought it was in the hallway.
Yeah, the first year I just had a table set up over by the stages.
Okay, I'm incorrect.
Because I remember it was really crowded. Because like
Yeah.
especially because like that was the first year Steam Powered Giraffe was there, so like a lot of people were there, and like they were doing the signing down there and stuff. So it was really crowded, and I was trying to look at all this stuff without freaking out and breaking anything. And I just remember thinking like, okay, so this is what I can expect to see at this show. This is like the type of and I got pretty pumped. And years going forward, it's always like, hey, we haven't seen MadEtcha's booth yet. Let's try and find her.
Aw.
Seriously, it's great. Like there's like this past year, and I can't remember what it was, but I had my regrettable hesitation.
Oh yeah.
Because I can't remember what was exactly on the item, but I remember we saw something, and I said, "Holy shit, that's awesome! That's great. We'll come back." And we came back.
It was the Kraken attacking a ship.
I think it
wasn't
was,
Yeah.
and it was gone.
Yeah, the Krakens usually end up going fairly quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, especially at a show like that. But Toni, I want to give you a moment to kind of we've been talking about you while you're kind of sitting there patiently waiting for us to finish. So, essentially, how the MadEtcha? What is the MadEtcha? How did that come to be? What is it essentially like that you do?
Well, I doodle on glass with Dremels.
And that's it.
That's pretty much it. Yeah. Well, I mean, I could tell you the story of how it started.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would love to hear that.
About 20 years ago, I was sharing a house with a bunch of friends, and somebody had left their Dremel kit in the basement. And I was downstairs. I had a little spot set up for little crafty things that I used to do. I used to make dream catchers and paint and stuff. And I got to flipping through this manual that was in the kit. And towards the back of the manual was an image of somebody writing the letter S and a serial number. And it was explaining how you can use it to put serial numbers on your glass items or your metal items. And I thought to myself, if they can draw an S, I can draw a dragon.
The natural progression.
Yeah.
Yes. And, it took a few tries to get the hang of it initially, and it took a few years to get those lines as smooth as I'm able to get them now. But yeah, I'm 20 years in, and I fell in love with it that day, and I still love it to this day. It's a great way to recycle glass, and get that imagery out there that you don't need to throw out everything. The world is not so disposable,
Right.
and you could just take anything. And so much wine glasses and wine bottles and liquor stores and bars, and these bottles just get smashed up and melted down and reused. And why smash them? They're so pretty.
Seriously.
You could decorate them and wash them out and reuse them, and there you go.
So when I first met, I started questioning you because what am I? I'm not quite an artist. I'm good enough to con my way through and kind of get by in some aspects.
Oh, me too.
But but anytime I see a new medium that I haven't seen before, I start asking a lot of questions, and I was like, and one of my first things was what kind of bit are you using? What Dremel tool will do this to glass without breaking it or just drilling through it?
You can pretty much use any Dremel tool. I've used cheap Craftsman models. I've used inexpensive rotary tools. The bits that the bits that I use are 1.5 millimeter to 2.5 millimeter, small round ball bits. At this point, and only because I'm so used to holding the Dremel, it's kind of like drawing with a big fat marker. But the weight of the tool and not using the flex shaft is actually what helps me keep my lines so steady. Because you're right, the bit does want to get away from you. As soon as you touch it to glass, it's like, and off it goes, and it wants to take off. But the weight of the tool helps to stabilize my hand, and if you're going in the direction that the bit is spinning, that also helps. So you're not working against the revolution of the bit.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have any prior, like, artistic train, like, were you, because you mentioned you had, like, you made dream catchers and things like that, like, were you an artist before this, or was this kind of like a happy accident in that it's like, wow, I'm down with this?
Everything is a happy accident. I am a chronic dabbler. I have no formal training whatsoever.
That's, I kind of don't believe you. Because like it's so good, it's just it's like, I don't believe you in the most in the best way, I guess, that's not meant to be, but like
you.
it's fantastic, like, to hear that. It's like, damn, like, good on you, that's
well, when you fall in love with something, I mean, I really did fall in love with etching. I mean, I've always loved glass, I've always loved jewel tones, and I've always been like, plastic is the devil. So really, you get a lot of trial and error, and you do it for so many years, and you start to figure out as you're going, I could do this design a little bit better if I do that, and then you end up with this whole style that you teach yourself as you go on, and before you know it, you're able to make a more clear, concise design that pops a little bit nicer than it did 10 years ago when you were doing this type of designs.
Well, it's not like you had tutorial YouTube videos to watch 20 years ago.
Exactly.
No. No, I came, I saw, I doodled. That was pretty much it.
So I know I've seen someone use, like, the extendo that you mentioned, where, like, they could plug it into Dremel, and, like, I've seen a guy kind of hold it over one shoulder and then loop the extendo, like, over his neck.
Right.
So he doesn't actually have, he doesn't have to, like, support the weight much, but, like, he's drawing with, like, a smaller bit, but, like, there's still going to be resistance in that.
Yeah, I don't like the flex shaft. I found it to be, what's the best word? It kind of held me back, because you have this big, long, awkward thing with spinning bits inside of it, and, instead of having a whole long hose that's spinning on the inside, I would much rather just have the bit spin.
Right. So as you started out, when you started etching and learning how to, make designs and carve into the glass pieces, are there times where, like, well, if I move against the spin, will that make a different texture, or will that just be wobbly or more difficult? Like, would there be elements where, like, you could do that on purpose?
Yes and no. It's more out of laziness than anything else. If I don't want to keep going in the same direction, and I don't feel like spinning the glass around or repositioning myself to get that better stroke, then yeah, I'll definitely go backwards. But it's not often. The bit kind of tells you, hey, listen, I want to go to the right, so keep your brush strokes to the right, and you kind of take it from there. Spin the stuff around as you need it. And
when I first saw you at Wicked Fair, and one of the things I was doing, I was being super nosy, because I was, like, trying to peer over the table to your setup, like, behind a table, because you're like, oh, I could, if you want something custom, I could do it right now, right here. And I was like, what? You're not gonna, like, go home and plug this into your 3D printer etching machine or something? It's like, and if I was working on something like this, I would be way too anal about it, and, like, I'd want to construct a rig to hold down my circular objects while I try to work on top of it. And you're like, no, I just hold it in my lap. It's fine.
Well, yeah. I mean, when I'm getting into something that I'm working on, I'm all over it. You're going to be all over it, whether it's a big piece or a little piece. And if I'm not sitting at my kitchen table doing it, like I do everything else at my kitchen table, then I'm going to have it in my lap. And you just get accustomed to doing things that way when you spend that much time with one particular small item or medium-sized item.
And we got to see that at World's Fair last year. because Alex had commissioned a cousin. Did you bring your own glass, or did
No,
you? Okay,
I
so
didn't.
that was
because that was one of the first things we're like, damn it, I should have thought of this.
right.
Because and like it wasn't any when. So I came up to her and I was like, my plan for this weekend, like, maybe I'll see some shows, but my plan is to have a custom order for MadEtcha, and that's really the only reason I went, to be honest.
Aw.
And she goes, "Oh, did you bring me a bottle?" And I was like, "No,
What?
I can't believe I didn't bring my own
Was I
bottle."
supposed to?
And she was like, "No, it's fine. I have my own, but I'm just, if you have something in mind, then I'll use that." And it was kind of funny because at first she's like, "So what are you looking for?" And I was like, "I don't know. What do you got?" And she goes, "Shot glass." And I go, "It's for Mom." And then she took out this really nice blue bottle, and I was like, "That's it. Let's go with that one," because she likes blue anyway. And I asked for a lighthouse, and again, I'm going to keep like repeating back to previous times we've met and we've talked about everything, and how so much is freehand.
Yeah.
And I respect that. And after seeing all her work for so many years, like I absolutely believe her. And so when I ask for a lighthouse and she like takes out a Sharpie and starts like sketching it out on the bottle, I'm like, "No, I trust you. You don't have to prove this to me."
Do your thing.
Like I know she's only drawing it like to show me like the size of what it might be. And I'm like,
Right.
It's okay.
But we got to see like the process.
Mm-hmm.
And when Toni says, like right in the lap, it's right in her lap. She's just sitting there holding the bottle, etching into it, like just free. And like people would come up and they'd be like, "Hey, oh my God, this is great." And she'd talk to them, like, and just go right back. It was like obviously I have reiterated hundreds of times that I am the most artistically challenged person in the world. I have no art skill. When it comes to like drawing, anything like that. So to see someone it's just you made it look so casual, like it's just another like way of another. It's like how is that even possible? Like you don't need to flatten out the bottle. Do you have a machine that flattens out glass and then you can reshape? Like it's just it's crazy. It's fantastic.
Oh, I love the curve. I love the challenge of working on a curved surface, and I love the fact that it's functional after I doodle on it.
Right. You technically could, you could use it again as its original, intended use.
Yes, which was, the whole reason why I started. Don't throw that bottle out.
Have you like made deals with any local like bottle returns or like liquor stores or anything or bars? I guess I don't know.
No, I know a lot of people that drink, and
That's fair.
they give me their empty bottles. It's actually become quite the tradition. Anytime somebody has a party or a get-together, they call me up and say they got bottles for me, and I say, "Okay, I got shelf space."
Do you keep an eye like specifically for the more unique ones out there?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Well, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, a lot of times, like, I like to go to barns and antique shops and find those little out-of-the-way little sales places that you wouldn't normally go into, and I like to work on the old antique bottles too.
Right.
Anything that has a good shape to it, that's got a smoothness to it. I love working in jewel colors when I can find them. But yeah, I come across neat colored glass all the time, and I pick it up whenever I can and work on it. And when I go to the shows, I usually only do Wicked and the Steampunk World's Fair because, Wicked and the Steampunk World's Fair. Come on. There's shows to go to. It's my excuse to go.
Yep.
But yeah, I'll bring like the shot glasses with me to shows like that because I can get them in bulk and I can give people a quick example of what it is that I'm doing because it doesn't really take me very long to do a shot glass. And they get to see, like, yeah, this stuff is not laser etched. I don't use templates. I refuse to use chemicals. It's not going to be the same design twice. I sign and date everything. And it gives people a chance to get something small that they can request. It's personal, just for them.
It's also affordable, like, because going up, like there are some very large works that are just, we've already been gushing a lot, but just mind-blowing stuff, like, a kraken attacking a ship, or like just a pirate. Like there's also the tree with the
leaning skeleton.
Yeah, the skeleton on, like
I love my Skellies.
It's so good, like, and it's on both sides of the bottle. Like each side has like, but you could see through it instead. Love it. And like, if you can't necessarily afford a larger piece, there's the shot glasses. Aren't there also light bulbs too?
I remember that.
Those aren't actually light bulbs. Those are small jars.
Right. Yes.
But
yes.
they do look like light bulbs.
Yep,
Yeah. So.
Yep. So like there is the more like you might not be able to walk away with the enormous piece, but you can still snag something a little bit more affordable, and you can even get it customized. You can say, hey, can I get something like this on it?
She put my mom's name on the bottom of the bottle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. I love doing stuff like that because now I know it's going to stay in the family.
Unless all the Theas out there.
There's a lot of vendors that kind of like when they first start out, they realize to an extent they have to cater to the audience.
Right.
A friend who does a lot of leatherworking, tried going to TempleCon and brought like a suit of armor that he had made, like all this leather, gorgeous armor, but there's like kids there to play games.
Right.
And no one's going to buy his, $3,000 chest plate and shoulder pad, and all that. I mean, he has like legit terms for him. And then, like, when they go back, he's like, let's make some bracelets. There's a fox on a bracelet instead. And it's like, oh, this is something more affordable for the audience. Which, I mean, my point exactly, I bought 2 of the small jars with corks in them my first time around. And then it's also a matter of keeping what you see in mind. Because even in the off-season, like, the timing worked up well for me, so I could get it when I met up with her. But if you're looking for a gift in the off season, if you don't happen to like meet her, you have an Etsy. Is that correct?
Yes, I have an Etsy.
I'm scrolling through it right now, like literally right now.
And will you be able to take like custom orders through that, or do you? Or
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
How has the process been dealing with customers so far? Because I know, like, we do a lot of comic book stuff, and we do a lot with sketches from artists that do comic books, and occasionally we'll hear a story of like, well, the person didn't want that version of Cyclops, and they don't want to pay for it. They wanted like the classic Cyclops, and now the artist is kind of put off by it, and the person who wanted to buy it is put off by it. But it's like you can't really erase what you've done or redo it. So have you had any problems with trying to make what people have asked for?
No, not really. The only issue I think I've ever had was a custom request that was made on Etsy, and the person decided that they couldn't do it after the fact. And but to avoid stuff like that, I tell people, listen, I like to keep things real low key. Just tell me what you want. Give me some artistic freedom to do it. I'll come up with something. And if you like it, awesome. We'll talk about, the purchase then. If you want to add any names or dates or anything like that to it, I'll do all that after the fact because, you can't resell something if somebody doesn't want, like, Lola's best friend written on a beer stein. Then, you're going to have a hard time reselling that. But if I just do the design that they want and then add the names and stuff after I know that they're happy with it, it tends to take some of the pressure off for everybody. Because, I mean, even if somebody doesn't want something after they've ordered it, if it's a nice design that I had fun doing, I'm really not going to worry about it. Somebody will like it. It was a good idea. It was something to get me out of my comfort zone and make something new. And either way, somebody will want it.
I hope at least some people listening immediately jumped to Space Jam, because that's Lola's like first appearance. Lola Bunny.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Are you serious? I did not know that.
I'm not sure what she was in before that. But that was a big deal. Anyway.
Because even in Tiny Toons, it was Babs.
Yeah.
It wasn't yet.
Yeah.
That's blowing my mind. Blowing my mind.
If you have any leftover Lola stuff, just advertise it as a Space Jam piece.
Yeah.
Looney Tunes. It'll,
Someone will eventually snag it. But
That's good to know.
as far as, like, you briefly mentioned, Wicked and Steampunk World's Fair. I've been to the one Wicked Fair a couple years back, and back when it was like the double con. It was Wicked Fair and Voltaire's Wicked Necro Comic Con.
And then it moved.
And then it moved, and then it changed names, and now it was Glimmerdark, and now Glimmerdark's done, and now it's back to Wicked. And then also obviously World's Fair. Have those been shows that you have, always attended? Like, did you ever like go to shows or even World's Fair like before being a vendor, or was it just straight up like, hey, this is a neat show, I think I might sell my stuff there?
With Wicked, I had a friend who was going to be vending there, and it was on his suggestion that I come tag along and check it out, and I'm glad that I did because I was instantly hooked.
Mm-hmm.
And the Steampunk World's Fair is, as soon as I realized that it had all the same types of vendors, excuse me, and it was run by Jeff Mack, I was all for checking it out, and I'm glad that I did, because, I mean, I've been back every year since. I think this is my 5th year now? I want to say 5th year with Steampunk World's Fair. And now that Wicked is back to its original Wicked roots, I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, yep.
I mean, it's such a great, diverse group of people,
Mm-hmm.
and you get anything that inspires you, you're going to find at these events. And that's what I love about it the most, is all the inspiration, creativity you see from some of these artists that come, like Michelle Greenwood and Delamort and some of these other artists that they come out with the most amazing things. And you're not going to find stuff like that anywhere else. That tends to be a little more consumerism based, and you have your cookie cutter stuff and things that you tend to see on repeat. And granted, these things are nice and awesome, and I'd collect them all if I had the funds to do so. But it's the original artists that really blow my mind at these events.
Yeah.
I was just like, as you were saying that, I was like making a quick list in my head of things that I never would have encountered had I never gone to World's Fair, and it was like at least like 10 or 11 deep before I was like, okay, I need to stop. Like between vendors, artists that I've met, like friends that we've made, like that when we go to World's Fair, there are people that we do not see, for the entire year, and it's like oh hey, it's in like my entire life I knew friends like nearby. Hey, it's you live a town over. I know your name, you know my name, we're friends. I don't know people outside of that wheelhouse.
Right. Yeah.
And then we go to World's Fair, it's like, oh hey, it's you. We know each other through this show. Like, and this is like the one time a year we see each other, and we're really good. And it's just it's still kind of foreign to me. And like just having that kind of those kind of connections just through a convention.
Oh, it's a totally cozy kind of foreign.
It is. And yeah, I'm not. It's so good. It's just a great show. It's like.
It's super accepting of anybody and everybody.
Yeah.
And it really, you can't ask for a better group of people in an environment like that. Where you're going to have all of these different opinions on, this type of art or that type of art, or this kind of genre or that genre, or if you like space, or if you like Renaissance, or if you like fantasy, or if you're a gamer, or whatever, you're going to find a mix of all of it there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so great.
Are you, I know it's still pretty early with World's Fair being in May, usually. I think the upcoming one is going to be in May as well.
Yes.
Are you going to be doing World's Fair, and are you also going to be doing Wicked this year?
Yes, I will be at both events. I'm going to get back into my dragon roots, at least that is my plan. I had burned myself out on dragons for a while there, and I was focusing so much on my skeletons, and then I got really into the boats and the Kraken designs and the steampunk people. Just, oh god, they inspired me so much with all their cosplay and all that awesomeness that happens. But I do miss my dragons, so I think it's about time now that Wicked's back that they make a resubmergence and come back into the wonderful world of the living.
When it comes to a new bottle or like a design that you have in your head, do you have more designs like stowed away that you don't have time to get out and put onto glass? Or is it more of like, I don't know what I'm going to make right now, but I'm going to start going and we'll see where we end up?
Yes, that. There is no rhyme or reason. There is never a plan. I pick up a piece of glass, I stare at it for a few minutes, it kind of tells me what it wants on it, and I give it a go and see where it takes me, and that's the process. Sometimes I use the Sharpies, sometimes I don't.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on the type of glass I'm working on and the current and the design. If it's a design that I'm kind of familiar with the line work that's going to be going into it, I might not necessarily sketch it out with the Sharpie first. If it's something new, then I will. But all in all, there's no plan.
With your pieces that you've done designs on both sides, because some of the bottles are like a square shape, and even some of the round ones you've been able to put stuff on each side of it so it looks like it's combining, or they have reason to be front and back to each other. And with it being glass and see-through, like, is there a point where you get confused as to what you're drawing at the moment?
You know, you would think that there would be a lot of confusion, but it really isn't. You end up with a foreground and a background, and separating the foreground from the background is what gives it that kind of 2D, 3D look. So, no, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no. We're going to go with yeah, no.
What has been some of the like the weirdest finds that you've discovered, like while flea marketing or antique shopping, that you were gonna draw on?
Oh, goodness. I found this one vase that I had sold a number of years back, and it almost looked like it was a light blue color, and it was a tall vase, and it looked like they had turned it upside down and let the rim of the vase drip. So when it was standing straight up, it was very reminiscent of upside down icicles. So naturally, Ice Dragon.
Obviously.
But that is by far one of my most favorite odd pieces of glass. I like things with overpronounced handles. I like things that look like they've been hand blown.
Have you had to get into much history, like learn more about glass as you've gone? Like, is it like a natural knowledge that you've gained, where it's like, what is this and where did it come from? Because I know there's some collectors that will check, like, you know, they'll check the stamp on the bottom or whatever they do to imprint, you know,
right,
the home of where the glass came from and where it was made, and they'll be able to pick out like a collector's piece versus a mass production thing. So my question is, like, how much have you had to learn about this, or do you just work on whatever you find?
I basically work on whatever I find, but as far as what I've had to learn about it, there are a few things that I've had to learn. Mostly in my earlier years when I was first starting out, I would naturally go to the discount stores before I was really into, you know, barn sales and antique sales, and before eBay was around.
Mm-hmm.
I would go to these discount stores and find glass to practice on. And I found, you know, I would get really excited about all of these colored glass items that you would find on the shelves, and they'd be pinks and purples and oranges and all Roy G. Biv'd out. And I'd look at all these beautiful colors, and I'd get them home and I'd start etching on them, and I found out the hard way that that's not real colored glass. It's mostly tinted with this. It must be dipped or maybe sprayed with glass tint that's kind of reminiscent of vinyl, or like a saran wrap almost, that is heated and sucked down into the glass. So there was this one bottle that I remember I learned that lesson so hard. In fact, I was doing chiller that year. I had gotten a very large teardrop-shaped blood red bottle.
Ooh.
And it was so gorgeous. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to vampire bat the crap out of this bottle. And I looked up all these vampire bat pictures, and I got this beautiful design in my mind, and I had mountains going around the bottom with a whole murmuration of these bats coming out of the cave there. And I went to wash it off, and all the red started to peel off.
Oh.
And I had to sit there. It took me longer to scrub all the paint off the bottle than it did to actually engrave it.
Oh.
And, I mean, it still sold. It was still very pretty when it was done, but I was very sad that it wasn't blood red anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that was probably the hardest lesson I had to learn.
Are you able to tell a difference now?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. You can feel the glass with your finger. And if it has, like, a rubbery feel to it, that's not something you're going to want to etch.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is crap glass. Get this out of my face.
Smash it.
And speaking of like, there are another thing that is admirable, like I don't know the right word for it, but you put a lot of trust in the people at the shows, like, because you do see sometimes at a lot of different vendors, do not touch.
Yeah.
Don't touch this, please. It's fragile, or we don't want fingerprints on it, or it took a long time to make. Please don't touch it. Whereas, like, I Tony, if I recall correctly, I believe, like, we've been encouraged, like, yeah, pick it up, take a look at it. Like, it's always, like, even, like, 'cause we've seen you pretty much in every setting at World's Fair. We've seen you in a room.
Yes.
We've seen you in a hallway. And then this past year, you were in, like, the big, like, vendor room, like, right on the corner there.
Yes.
So there's ample room to actually look at this and not freak out about, like, blocking anything or anything like that. But it's like I said, it's it's a lot of faith, a lot of trust in the people. Like, have you ever like had to be like, hey, maybe can you please maybe put that down, or is it just like you've never really had to encounter that? Like, it's just people just respect the work.
Oh yeah, people are very respectful. I've never had an issue, and besides, I always bring Windex and alcohol and paper towels with me. You want people to pick the stuff up and look at it, because if you're not sitting there holding it in your hand and holding it up to the light, you're never really gonna see all of the detail that goes into the wraparound designs.
Right.
So I definitely encourage it, and I mean, I can always wipe off a fingerprint. It's not gonna, it's not gonna wipe the etch off. The etch
Right.
is never gonna come off. And I tell people too, because they ask me, well, is the dishwasher safe? And I'm like, well, if it didn't have any engravings on it, would you still put it in the dishwasher?
Right.
Like, wine glasses and champagne glasses and stuff like that. People, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It's really a gamble if you feel like putting something in the dishwasher. But as far as the etched glass goes, you never have to worry about it chipping off or coming off. So yeah, it's a pretty durable design. Once it's in there, it's in there.
Has anyone ever incorporated your work with, like, physical? Because I'm getting ideas in my head literally right now of taking a glass spot. Like, obviously I cannot do this because I have no talent. Ship in a bottle. I can, right, having a ship in the bottle, but then having, like, oh my god, I'm getting so many ideas. Like, and then having, and then Tony, like, you would like a kraken attacking the etched kraken attacking the ship that's inside the bottle. Oh my god, I need to learn how to build a ship in a bottle. And then, like, have you ever I don't know if any customers have ever requested this, or if it's something you've done previously. Like, have you ever kind of incorporated the etching along with, like, the physical contents, like, of the bottle or anything like that?
No, nothing like that. I mean, I'm kind of picturing that ship in a bottle design idea now.
Right. Where I think we're coming into
freaking awesome.
We're breaking ground on
right?
the next.
Right. I'll have to get some ships in a bottle and put the krakens on the outside trying to break in.
Right.
Man, that's way better than my
Why
idea.
can't I reach this ship? I can see through.
This is garbage. What was your idea?
My idea was similar to, like, one of the rectangle bottles, and doing the Vitruvian Man, but doing one pose on one side and doing the other pose on the other side.
Yep.
Oh, that would be pretty cool.
Hey man, your idea was cool.
If it was anybody else, I'd be like, "You're welcome." But not this time.
There was something that I had done for somebody once where I took 4 panes of glass and I did a little bit more of an in-depth kind of design where they wanted 2 river dragons playing over a running river. So I had the dragons in the center, I had some background in the back with the trees and some mountains, and then in the front I had the grasses and the bushes and happy trees and bushes and stuff.
Yeah.
That one had 4 panes though. That was about the deepest I've gone.
How big were these panes of glass?
1 square foot each.
Okay. Have you had any requests to work on, like, an entire window or anything, or?
No.
Someday.
No. I mean, I have. I've doodled on storm windows, but I personally, my preference is to not work on anything flat.
Okay.
Really?
I just I just really don't like working on flat things. I really like the curvature of the bottles and the glasses and the cups and the functionality of it. And
Yeah.
I love the idea that, you have this piece of art on a mug that you're going to use for your coffee or your tea every day.
Right. It's not
Or
only functional, but it's...
Right? Yeah.
When you go to like World's Fair, Wicked Fair, do you ever get a chance to experience the show yourself? Because when you're a vendor, obviously you gotta vend. You gotta
Right.
make. It's not like you're sitting there for free or anything like that. You want to sell your product. Do you ever get to enjoy the show at all?
Well, last year my husband and my brother-in-law came with me, and it was so great because I finally did get to see a show, and I went to go see Victor and the Bully, who were amazing, and that was pretty awesome. I think I also saw Hubris do a fire show, and yeah, I'll get to go do a little lap here and there, but for the most part, I really just like sitting at the booth and talking to people and etching away, and I'm a chronic people watcher, so it's great. It's great. You don't have to really experience the Steampunk Fair. Yeah, there's all these amazing shows and after-hours parties and panel discussions and group meetings, and there's so much to do. But at the same time, all of these people in costumes, they're just walking around, and they bring their art with them. Like 90% of it is portable, and all of it goes for walks. And you get to sit there and watch it walk by. And for me personally, that's the best. I love people watching. So to see them all dressed up, acting out the part of a character that they don't normally get to be in their everyday lives, it just warms my heart.
It's like they bring the show to you almost.
Sure do.
It's one of those, like, one of my favorite, like, fondest memories, I guess, was, I think it was the second year that we had gone, and we were just, maybe even been the first year, but like just in the main courtyard of the Radisson, like there was a band playing on the stage, and like there were people just like sitting in circles like at a hookah, and like we found some open chairs and we just sat there, and just like the weather is gorgeous because it's in May, and like you can hear music in the distance at the main stage and stuff like that. And like there's people doing hoops, and there's flashing like the batons,
and then the aerial silks.
Aerial silks. You could also see like maybe Mark Donnelly's teaching a class on whatever. It's just, you can just sit there and you can just chill and just watch. And I remembered like it was heaven. I couldn't get enough of it. And like every year, like I try to like duplicate that a little bit. Like, a couple years ago, just watching on Sunday morning, just watching Scott Hellen's solo show. Like it was freezing. I was starving. Like it was just, but I was just like, I'm just gonna sit here in the back and I'm just gonna watch Scott Hellen do his thing. It's just such a good show. So I get what you mean. You can just kind of sit at the booth and not only sell your product and talk to people about your product, but people will also inadvertently bring their product to you. It's just a really rad show.
You get to be heavily introverted, but you're gonna be drawn out to your extroversion whether you like.
There's elements where I would be nervous, because let's say I've seen so like at New York Comic Con, there's vendors who have just all these statues out on display, or these really expensive dolls, and and like each piece is at least $200 to $500 a piece, and then you see a cosplay of Cloud walking by with his Buster Sword.
Yep.
And he's got it slung over his shoulder and just overhanging his shoulder by like 4 feet. And if he turns sideways, he's wiping out $1,000 of product.
Yep.
Yeah.
Whereas like the costumes that you'll find at Steampunk World's Fair aren't small costumes. Like, they might have like a wind up toy crankshaft on their back, or this amazing hoop skirt, or any combination, or wings and whatever. And like your product is glass.
Yeah.
So when some of these people walk by, like I would get so nervous and like want to go stand in front of them. It's like his one errant turn. What was that? Sorry.
You keep a watchful eye, but I mean, for the most part, these people, they know they're walking around in basically rooms.
Mm-hmm.
And they have wings, or they have staves, or they have these giant headdresses or other costume props, and they're pretty aware of it. It's like a mutual trust. They know they look good, you know they look good. They know if they want to keep looking good, they can't exactly go knocking over all of the stuff that they want. And you trust that. Yeah.
Like you were saying, it's your work is like safe for the dishwasher and whatnot.
Well, some of it.
Are
depending on the glass that it's on.
Yeah.
Do you have a preferred like thickness, I guess? Because is there stuff that's too thin where like what you're dremeling or etching might
explode,
might reduce like the structural integrity of the item?
Christmas balls. They're generally a little too thin for me to work on. And the only other time I ever had an issue, I was working on these teeny tiny little vials that I was making into pendants. And I had just finished a little skeleton design. I think I did like a skeleton schnauzer or something on the front of it. And I went to sign my initials on the bottom, and I went right through the bottom of the bottle.
Oh.
But that's the only time that's ever happened. I break more glass from dropping it than I do from etching.
That's a weird question, but I guess it could fit with anybody else who works with their hands with tools that rotate at I don't even know how many
thousands
RPMs.
of revolutions.
100,000 or so.
If it doesn't happen as much now, maybe when you were beginning, were there times where you'd injure yourself where like the Dremel would slip, or like you weren't holding it right, or like you might jab yourself, or what was my other one? The glass dust, does that dry out your hands at all, or?
Well, yes, actually it does. I wear fingerless gloves, just because if you were sketching with a pencil, you know how the side of your hand gets blackened from the lead on the paper. It's the same thing. You get glass dust all on the side of your hand. So I wear gloves to protect my hands from that, because it will make your skin kind of raw. I mean, it's not exactly insulation type fine fibers of glass, but it's powdery enough that it can irritate your skin if you're working for a prolonged period of time.
Yeah. And it's glass. Particles of glass all over you. Yeah.
Because I think one of the things we asked Michelle Greenwood was like, do you ever burn your fingers? And she was like, yeah, all the time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the most important thing I could tell everybody is to just make sure you have your hair pulled back when you're working with a rotary tool.
Yeah. See, I never
forgot about that one.
Would have thought about that.
Yep.
But when you do think about it, it makes a lot of sense.
How many Dremels have you gone through?
Dozens. Dozens upon dozens upon dozens.
Really?
Yeah.
Damn.
Have you found like a workhorse that lasts for a while, or just some like burn out in less than a year? Or does it depend on like, do you have different ones for different jobs?
Nope, not really. I work them until they die. And I prefer the Dremel, the name brand Dremel.
Right.
I used to prefer Craftsman, but I feel like the Dremel is a little more substantial in its speed, and it makes the lines a little easier if you have a high speed going.
So the high speed is better than like a lower speed?
Oh yeah, you wanna work it on full open. So some of the smaller engines in the other rotary tools, they might not, if they don't get up to 100,000 RPMs, you could still etch with it, but it's not going to be like cutting butter. It's going to be a grind.
You're gonna have to work for it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's when I was getting my tattoo one time, my sister was there, and started asking the guy. I was like, "Hey, so how's your carpal tunnel risk?" And he's like, "Pretty high." And I'm like, "Oh my God, Becky, can you not? Like, don't make the man worry about his future." But I mean, it's a legit question. Is like holding, these things to do this work, like, does it have any effect on your wrist? Like all the tiny bones of that make up your hand and your wrist. Like, have you had any effects on that yet?
No, not really yet. Knock on wood. I have a very strong grip in my right hand. But other than that, if you're working for a prolonged period of time, yeah, your arm will start to get numb.
No.
But I did practice tattooing for a little while, and it's very similar in the sense that you're working with a vibrating tool, and it's an awkward shape, and it's a strange way to hold it and get used to it. But once you do get used to it, it's not that bad.
I was just looking at an item that I picked up with Brett. Actually, there was a local one-time flea market, and a guy was selling all this stuff, and I bought these 2 jars from him. And Brett's like, "What are you getting those for?" And I like looked Brett straight in the eyes, and I was like, "MadEtcha," and he was like, "Duh."
Well, like I was looking, like you were holding it for a second, and then I realized that it's green,
Yeah.
and I got to thinking, like, because you said Toni, like it would feel like rubbery if it were like dipped.
Yes.
So I'm trying to determine, like,
If it feels like rubber.
is this tinted glass? Like, is it legit green glass? Like, or is it?
Another good way to tell. I mean, because if you don't really know what you're feeling for, if you're trying to feel whether or not
Yeah, I have
it's
no idea.
coated, start with another piece of glass, like a drinking glass that you know is straight up glass,
Right.
and tap it with your fingernail, and you'll get to feel the feeling of tapping just regular glass with your fingernail. Now tap the colored glass. If it still feels the same, then you have true colored hunter green glass, which is beautiful. If it's coated, that tink 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 when you're tapping on it with your nail, it's going to feel a little muted.
Okay.
Here, give it a tap up to the mic. There.
Hold on. What? I mean, it has a little bit of a ting, but I don't have a I don't
Another
have
glass
a
around nearby.
Yeah, I don't have another glass. We'll have to do some testing after we finish up.
So I bought these 2 jars. This one's green, the other one's brown, and we were trying to figure out what they were. And there's a label on this one. There's also one on the other one, but this one's in front of us right now.
From Practical Electric Products, automatic vaporizer humidifier. I don't know what that is. It has a water level line, so apparently you put water in it at one point.
I think these were some kind of like medical drips or like lab items.
Oh, probably. I mean, I'm
knows?
sure that there's a lot of glass out there is original apothecary glass from all kinds of interesting, crazy ways of doing health-related stuff with glass.
Do you have an idea for this?
Not yet,
We'll see.
but there's like a bit more info on the brown one, and that's one of the things where it's like, have you come across? It's because like, how big would you say this is? The opening is at least like 4 or 5 inches.
Maybe a gallon. Maybe.
Yeah, it's about at least a gallon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I might come at you with these 2 really weird jars next time. You see me?
Okay, we'll Google them and see if we can figure out where they came from.
Yeah, I'll send you a picture
Oh
of
yeah.
them both.
Okay.
But that's just how it works out. It's like, oh, I found this stuff at a flea market.
Yeah.
I want it because I think I know someone who could turn it into amazing art.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, one cool thing about the Steampunk Fair, there are a few antique vendors that tend to be in the courtyard,
Mm-hmm.
or are not necessarily the courtyard, the center in between the 2 hotels where they set up that big ginormous stage.
Right. Yeah, the
And
Midway.
there's a few of them. They sell old apothecary bottles in there, and it's always random what you're going to find. But I've actually gone in there during one of my laps around the event and picked up quite a few little antique bottles to work on while I was sitting there. So if you happen to find anything that you really like, I'd be more than happy to etch it up.
A friend threw a party for her husband, and they were gonna do like a beer tasting and whatnot, and ordered a whole bunch of these giant beer steins.
Mm-hmm.
And then A, not everyone showed up, and B, not everyone took theirs home, so she had a bunch left over. And I sent her your link and be like, if you don't know what to do with these, I have an idea. Have you gotten, because we've been talking about all this, like this fantasy stuff, this mythological, really creative items. Have you gotten anyone who's like, could you do the Boston Red Sox logo?
Yes, and I tell them no. I don't do any kind of sports memorabilia. I don't do logos. I don't do anything that's a brand name. If
Okay.
I can't
Respect.
pick it up, I'm not going to do it. I'm kind of passionate about that. I really feel it has airs of plagiarism to it, and I'm just not. I'm not going to make money off of a design that somebody else came up with.
Okay.
I'm just. So yeah, I tell people I'm sorry. Like I've done it in the past as a gift for like a family member or a close friend that happens to be a team person. Me myself personally, I'm not a sports person, but I've done things as gifts in the past, but nothing that I would ever do as a custom order.
So that probably rules out this green jar getting a Green Lantern logo on it.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that, but
I understand.
Yeah, I can respect that.
Yeah.
Because I mean, again, like, you know, you can, if you want a Red Sox logo on a tumbler, go to any sports shop in the world, and you'll find one. You know, like.
Yeah, really, go to the mall. You'll find.
But if you won't
know who it's made by. It's not made by Toni. It's made by some child in China.
It's made by acid etched whatever company LLC. You know, whereas if you want something original, something just freehanded, it's just great, and you can see Toni's work. I have personally I follow on Facebook under MadEtcha, MadEtcha, MadEtcha. You can go and check out Toni's work. Toni, where else can people, as far as whether they're looking on the website or online, where can people find your work, and also any upcoming shows? I know we talked about Wicked and World's Fair. I don't know if there's anything else that you're going to be doing, or if those are the only ones. Where can people see your stuff and potentially give you money to get your stuff?
Well, my Etsy is always up. That's really about as internetly inclined as I get, is Etsy and Facebook. I don't do Instagram. I don't even Pinterest. I'm not necessarily an internet savvy kind of person. I have my few things that I go on, and mostly it's Steam with my Steam account.
Right.
When I go online. But yeah, the Steampunk World's Fair and Wicked are the two big shows that I like to do every year, and that's where all of my efforts go to.
Excellent. I'm looking up right now. Wicked Fair looks like the upcoming one is going to be in February, February 2nd through the 4th of 2018, in Jersey. Both Wicked and the World's Fair, they rock out in Jersey. So if you're on the East Coast, or if you're nearby, I've only been to the one Wicked, and they're bringing it back this year after not happening last year. They transitioned to another show, but now they're going back. It's a lot of fun. It's similar to World's Fair, but it also has its own vibe. You know, with different things that you can see there. So you can go check that out, and you can check out Toni and her work. Or you can just or you can hit up World's Fair too in May, where it's not quite as cold. But Toni, I got to say, thank you so much for coming on and letting us grill you about etching into glass and things like that. I'm sure we'll have our yearly, oh my God, your shit's so amazing, you know, come May. But I gotta say thank you so much. It was a total pleasure getting to talk to you a little bit more in depth, and just really finding out what it entails and what goes into it.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was great to talk to you guys. I look forward to seeing you at the Wicked Fair and Steampunk World's Fair.
Excellent. It should be a fantastic time, and I'm excited to see what Alex comes up with on maybe what he wants on his glass later.
But like always, I'll have my Dremel with me, and you can always get a hold of me ahead of time if there's a kind of bottle that you want me to have on hand.
Which any listener should know. It's early December right now.
Exactly. Yep. Go and get your custom Christmas presents. Yeah, I've literally been scrolling the Etsy almost the entirety of this episode, and it's just good shit. But if you'll excuse my language, but Toni, thanks again. This was a lot of fun. That is going to be it for us this week. I can't think of anything else to say. Go check out Toni's work on Facebook and Etsy. Go check her out at a Wicked Fair or a Steampunk World's Fair if you happen to be near one. And that's going to do it. So until next week, I have been JR.
I'm Alex.
And I'm Toni.
and this has been episode, I lost the episode, there it is, 298 of Opinions May Vary.